Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone. So today we have our session number 24 already. And today we will speak about the Manus, the cycles of the Manus. And the chapter today is 13, right? Third canto, chapter 13. So the 13th chapter, it starts with Vidura inquiring about the activities of Swayambhuva Manu and Satarupa. Because in the last verses of the previous chapters, their activities they were described in summary, right? And the 12th chapter, the last verses of the 12th chapter describes very quickly the activities and the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu. And now Vidura wants to know in detail, right, about their activities. So the appearance of Swayambhuva Manu is an important event in the creation of the universe because it starts the begin or it marks the beginning of the first Manvantara. So there are 14 Manus in a day of Brahma, and this is a sequence that repeats in each of his days. Like each day of Brahma, there is the same sequence of 14 Manus. And at the end of each Manvantara, at the end of each reign of the Manus, then a great process of extinction occurs, right? With the previous Manu, and now the demigods leaving their posts. And then after a long period of managing the universe, a Manvantara it lasts for 306.72 million years. So it's a very long period. So after a long period of managing the universe, these demigods they receive an opportunity of being promoted to Maharloka, and from there they can continue, progressing, to the higher planetary systems. So if you had this question, what happens with Indra when it finishes, the Manvantara? That's the answer. They go higher, they go up to Maharloka. From there, they have the opportunity of continue, progressing. And so after one team of demigods leave, then the next Manu, he takes charge of the management of the cosmos, right? Another Manu takes his post, and together with a new team of demigods, right? The demigods are not necessarily sons of Manu, but they appear at the same time and they take their their posts together with Manu. So there is a period of 1.728 million years between two Manvantaras that it's called Sandhya juncture. And this is when things they are gradually restored after the previous devastation. Because you imagine that not only Manu leaves at the end of his reign, but all the demigods. So the universe, it falls into disarray, right? And then there is this partial devastation. And then when the next Manu takes charge with a new team of demigods, then they need some time, to put things back on track. So then, things can officially start. And then from there, after the Sandhya, the population of the universe is restored, and the different living entities, they can again continue with their activities. And apart from managing the universe, the Manus, they are responsible for disseminating and maintaining religious principles, right? Manu has this function also of teaching Dharma. So understanding these cycles of the Manus, it may sound just a detail. Okay, there is Manu, there is the demigod, he reigns from, 70 Divya Yugas and so on. You may think that it's just a small detail, but actually understanding the cycles of the Manus is the key for understanding the chronology of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because at first, Srimad Bhagavatam may appear to just be a book with different pastimes that have, deep spiritual significance, but don't really have, much of a connection with each other, right? You may just see these pastimes as just, different stories. However, when we can properly understand the chronology of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and for this we need to understand, these reigns of the Manus, then we can see that apart from all transcendental knowledge, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it actually gives a historical account of the history of the universe with precise dates for many universal events that are actually being gradually being confirmed by modern studies. So it's actually quite interesting. So this is by itself a proof of the divinity of the Srimad Bhagavatam and a proof of what the Vedas say about the origin of humanity and the process of creation of the world. Because if thousands of years ago, right, all human beings, they were, aborigines, living in caves, like it's believed in paleontology. So how could it be that the authors of Srimad Bhagavatam, they had dates for the creation of the universe and other cosmic events that are actually more precise than what modern studies they give, right? And how they can have details of how they can know details about the structure of the universe that are actually still ahead of what is known in modern science, right? That's a quite a interesting idea. For example, the Vedas, they bring this idea of multiple universes. And this is an idea that, it's gaining traction, like in modern science, only starting from like 30 or 35 years ago. So it's a recent thing, this idea of, multiple universes as a scientific thing, as a scientific, as a real possibility. Before, it was, in science fiction, but it was not considered as something serious. Starting from 30, 35 years ago, it started being studied in science. And that's something that the Vedas speak, clearly since the beginning, right? So you see that gradually modern studies, they are coming to the same conclusions that the Vedas give from the beginning. And Prabhupada makes this point that the Vedas, they bring perfect knowledge. If you want to study, if you want to do some, experimentations to test if it's correct or not, you can do that. But if you just accept from the beginning, then you save so much time, right? And that's what we are seeing, right? So okay, so by attentively following this narration of the different manus in the current day of Brahma, we can connect these different pastimes to the reign of the particular manus, and this way we can understand the chronology. And that's one of the things that we will try to do in this course, like in the next lessons. Connect all these different pastimes into this chronology so we can understand, what is the order, how one affects the other, and so on. And using a little bit more like complicated calculations, we can even connect these events that are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam to the planetary events that are studied in modern science. Beginning of the universe, beginning of the solar system, different extinction events that happened in the history of our planets, they all precisely match dates of events that are given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's quite interesting, right? Okay, so in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, chapter 8, Srila Prabhupada describes that after describing the Lila and Guna avatars, Lord Chaitanya explains the Manvantara avatars to Sanatana Goswami. So he first states that there is no possibility of counting the Manvantara avatars. In one kalpa or one day of Brahma, 14 manus are manifest. One day of Brahma is calculated at 4,320,000,000 years. And Brahma lives for 100 years on this scale. So if 14 manus appear in one day of Brahma, there are 420 manus during 1 month of Brahma. And during 1 year of Brahma, there are 5,040 manus. Since Brahma lives for 100 of his years, it is calculated that there are 404,000 manus manifest during the lifetime of one Brahma. Since there are innumerable universes, no one can imagine the totality of the Manvantara incarnations because all the universes are produced simultaneously by the exhalation of the Mahavishnu. So no one can begin to calculate how many Manus are manifest at one time. Each Manu, however, is calculated. No, each Manu, however, sorry, is called by a different name. So then Prabhupada explains that the first Manu is called Swayambhuva. He is the son of Brahma. So this is the Manu that is speaking about here, right? At this part of Srimad Bhagavatam, the first Manu that is created from Brahma, the husband of Satarupa. The second Manu, Swarosisa, is the son of the predominating deity of fire. He's the son of Agni. The third Manu is Uttama. He is the son of King Priyavrata. Priyavrata is one of the sons of Swayambhuva Manu. The fourth Manu, Tamasa, is the brother of Uttama. The fifth Manu, called Raivata, and the sixth Manu, Chakshusha, are both brothers of Tamasa, but Chakshusha is the son of Chakshu. The seventh Manu is called Vaisvata. He is the son of the sun god. He's the son of Vivasvan. This is the current Manu. That's where we are, seventh Manu. The eighth Manu is called Savarni, and he is also a son of the sun god, born of a wife called Chaya. In the ninth Manu, Daksha Shavarni is the son of Varuna. The tenth Manu, Brahmarsvini, is the son of Upashloka. The other Manus are known as Rudra Sarvani, Dharma Sarvani, Deva Sarvami, and Indra Sarvami. So these are the 14 Manus, right? So one thing that is important to keep in mind when we read Srimad Bhagavatam is that the Manus often, they take birth much before, and then after 2, 3, 4, 5 Manvantaras, they become Manu, right? So just because one Manu is born, is not because he becomes the Manu immediately. For example, Chakshusha, he is born in the dynasty of Dhruva Maharaj, in the first Manvantara, and then he becomes Manu only much later, in the sixth Manvantara, and so on and so forth, right? So keep this in mind. When the name of a Manu is mentioned in the text, is his birth. It doesn't mean that he becomes Manu immediately, right? That's something that leads to many misunderstandings when we try to understand this chronology. Okay. And then continue, there are 14 Manus in a day of Brahma, right? And 420 Manus in 1 month of Brahma, as Prabhupada just mentioned. Then 5,040 Manus in a year of Brahma. And a total of 504,000 Manus in the 100 years that constitute a life of Brahma, right? So just like the names of the demigods, the names of the Manus, they are titles, right? So on each day of Brahma, different personalities, they take these posts. So in other words, on each day of Brahma, there is a Swayambhuva Manu who appears as the son of Brahma and performs more or less the same activities. But each time, a different soul plays the role. So Swayambhuva Manu appears each day of Brahma. There is a Swayambhuva Manu there, and a Chakshusha Manu, and so on. But different souls, they play these roles, right? So there is Manu appears in every day of Brahma, but each time is a different soul there. So the same applies to demigods like Indra, great personalities like Daksha, and so on. These are all posts that are assumed by different souls in each day of Brahma. So this is interesting to notice, right? So it's like Manu is like president, right? Like each time a different person becomes the president. So during the reign of each Manu, the Lord descends as an avatar. So for example, during the reign, these are the Manvantara avatars, right? There is one avatar of the Lord for the period of each Manu. So, for example, during the reign of Swayambhuva Manu, the Lord appeared as Yagya. During the reign of Tamasa Manu, the Lord appeared as Hari. And this is the incarnation of the Lord who saves the elephant Gajendra. And then during the current Manu, he appeared as Vamana and so on. And this is corroborated on the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's 246. So it says that the avatars of Manu, or Manvantara avatars, are listed as followed in Srimad Bhagavatam 8, 1, 5 to 13 as Yagya, Vibhu, Satyasena, Hari, Vaikunta, Ajita, Vamana, Sarvabhauma, Risabha, Vikswasena, then Dharmasetu, Sudama, Yogeshwara, and Brihadbanu. So these are the 14 incarnations of the Lord that appear in each one of these Manvantaras, right? So in each Manvantara, we have one Manu, yeah, of course. We have one incarnation of the Lord, different for each Manvantara, and then we have all the demigods, Indra, Chandra, and so on, right? So altogether, now continuing what Prabhupada says, continuing the quote. So altogether, these are 14 in number, and of these, both Yagya and Vamana are also counted among the Lila avatars. So Vamanadeva and Yagya, they are both Manvantara avatars and Lila avatars simultaneously, right? They fit in both categories. So all these Manu incarnations are sometimes called Vaibhava avatars. Okay, yet another name, right? So we have thus a list. Oops, I think. Okay, here, right? We are here. So we have thus a list of the names of the 14 Manus and the corresponding incarnations of the Lords that appear in each. So first is Swayambhuva Manu and the avatar is Yagya. Then 2, Swarosita Manu and the avatar is Vibhu. Then 3, Uttama Manu and the avatar is Satyasena. And then Tamasa Manu, 4, the avatar is Hari. Then Raivata Manu, number 5, the avatar is Vaikunta. Then Chakshusha Manu, the avatar is Ajita. Vaisvata Manu, we are here, right? The avatar is Vamana. Then Sarvani Manu, and the avatar is Sarvabhauma. Dakshavarni Manu, the avatar is Rishabha. And then Brahma Savarni Manu, the avatar is Viswakshena. Then Dharma Sarvani Manu, the avatar is Dharma Shetu. Then 12 Rudra Sarvani Manu, the avatar is Sudama. Then Deva Sarvani Manu, the avatar is Yogeshwara. And then Indra Sarvani Manu, the avatar is Banu, right? So, well, you don't need to try to memorize this. This will be in the transcript, and you can check there wherever you need to see this table. But just that, just is interesting to know these names because this will help us, like in the whole Bhagavatam, while we are studying the whole Bhagavatam, to understand the chronology, because then we can see, this happens before, this happens after, right? This is very useful in this sense. Okay. Continuing the quote, still from Prabhupada. So just as the Lord sometimes becomes Brahma when there is no qualified living entity to assume the post, the Lord sometimes takes the post of Manu, Indra, or other important demigods when there is no qualified living entity to do their job. Sorry, this is not Prabhupada. Sorry, this is out of the quote. This is another thing. Sorry. A quote of Prabhupada will start now. So this is mentioned so now there is a quote from Prabhupada that is 1.3.12. Okay, so Prabhupada says here that, quote, when there is a scarcity of such pious living beings, the Lord incarnates himself as Brahma, Prajapati, Indra, etc., and takes up the charge. During the period of Swayambhuva Manu and the present period of Vaisvata Manu, there was no suitable living being who could occupy the post of Indra. The king of Indraloka, heavenly planet, the Lord himself at the time became Indra. Assisted by his own sons, like Yama and other demigods, Lord Yagya ruled the administration of the universal affairs, like Haribo. So that's the end of the quote, unquote. So, okay, so continue. So the Manus, they are called the fathers of mankind, because, no, assisted by other Prajapatis, they manage the whole planetary system of Bhumandala, and they are responsible for disseminating religious principles. Right? So not only they help to populate the whole Bhumandala, but they teach Dharma, right? So they are important for these two reasons. In the Bhagavad Gita, 4.1, for example, Krishna narrates how the transcendental science was narrated by the sun god to his son, Shradadeva or Satyavrata, who became the current Manu, Vaishvata. So he in turn transmitted it to Ikshvaku, right? Ikshvaku is one of his sons who became the ruler of the art. So Vivasvan spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Manu at the beginning of his rule, and that was about 120 million 400,000 years ago. And according to Prabhupada, like in Bhagavad Gita 4.1, Manu transmitted it to Ikshvaku about 2 million years ago. So the reigns of these different Manus, they are called Manvantara, right? The first Manvantara, it coincides with the advent of Swayambhuva Manu, right? When Swayambhuva Manu appears, the first Manvantara starts. And then Swayambhuva Manu is followed by Swarosisa Manu and so on. So at the end of each Manvantara, there is a partial devastation, right? In which all the demigods as well as all the great sages are replaced by a new team at the beginning of the next Manu. So apart from the demigods, there are these 7 sages that are also have a very important role in the universe. And the 7 sages, they are also replaced at the end of Manvantara. And similarly, the Manus, they are responsible for reestablishing the religious principles at the end of each Kali Yuga, right? Because, Kali Yuga, religious principles, they are lost, right? And then at the end of Kali Yuga, someone has to reestablish these principles, preparing for the beginning of the next Satya Yuga. So Manu also has this responsibility. So as Srila Prabhupada explains, and that's Srimad Bhagavatam 8.14, introduction. Manu's duty is to reestablish the system of religion. Manu's sons execute Manu's orders, and thus the entire universe is maintained by Manu and his descendants. The Indras are various rulers of the heavenly planets. Assisted by the demigods, they rule the 3 worlds. So just observation, Manu rules Jambudvipa, the intermediate planetary systems, and then Indra rules Swargaloka, right? So back to Prabhupada. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead also appears as incarnations in different yugas. He appears as Sanaka, Sanatana, Yagyavalkya, Dattatreya, and others. And thus, he gives instructions in spiritual knowledge, prescribed duties, principles of mystic yoga, and so on. As Marichi and others, he creates progeny. As the king, he punishes the miscreants. And in the form of time, he annihilates the creation, right? So that's the end of the quote. So in each Manvantara, it lasts for 71 Divya Yugas, right? Divya Yuga is a complete cycle of 4 ages. And this is a total of 306.72 million years. So there are 1,000 Divya Yugas in a day of Brahma. It's 1,000 sequences of these 4 ages. Therefore, if we make the calculations, it appears that it doesn't add up because 71 Divya Yugas multiplied by 14 Manus are just 994 cycles instead of 1,000. So where are the other 6 cycles, right? This is explained by the existence of a few gaps between the reigns of different Manus. And this includes the long cycle of creation at the beginning of the day of Brahma, right? Everything that we studied, that Brahma wakes up and he meditates and then he creates the planets and so on. So this comes before the first Manvantara, right? So there is this time in the beginning of the day of Brahma for the creation to happen. Then there is the advent of the first Manu, and then there are the Sanjas and other gaps between the Manus and so on, right? So when we add everything up, then it comes to 1,000 cycles, right? So this and so on, right? So just to make this point clear that no, there is not a mistake. It's 71 Divya Yugas for each Manu and 14 Manus. And then there are like 6 cycles that correspond to these different intervals. And then next slide, Swayambhuva Manu starts his reign. Jai, right? Everyone is happy. So Swayambhuva Manu is a great devotee of the Lord, right? He's considered one of the 12 authorities in Vedic knowledge in our universe. So as declared by Lord Yamaraj in Srimad Bhagavatam 6.3.20, he says that, quote, Lord Brahma, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Lord Kapila, right, the son of Devahuti, Swayambhuva Manu, Prahlada Maharaja, Janaka Maharaja, grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaja, Sukadeva Goswami, and I, myself, know the real religious principles, right? So these are the 12 Mahajanas, the 12 authorities in spiritual knowledge. So Manu received from Brahma the mission of begetting qualified children with the assistance of his wife, right? And in this way, bringing forth generations of living entities that could be trained in the practice of devotional service. So often we think that the purpose of life is just economic development and, realization of personal ambitions, right? But the real goal is to improve our spiritual understanding and gradually reconnect ourselves with our eternal nature as spirit souls. So the whole universe is created with this ultimate goal, right? Ultimate objective, starting with the advent of Swayambhuva Manu. Like you see, the whole universe, it happens, it exists with this goal of giving the souls an opportunity of developing their Krishna consciousness. That's why the universe exists. That's the reason for the existence of the universe. And that's the goal of life, for us. So after being born, Swayambhuva Manu and his wife, they approached Brahma and they inquired about their mission, or what should we do. So, quote here, that's 3:13.6-8, quote, the sage Maitreya said to Vidura, after his appearance, Manu, the father of mankind, along with his wife, thus addressed the reservoir of Vedic wisdom, Brahma, with obeisances and folded hands. So they said, you are the father of all living entities and the source of their subsistence. Because they are all born of you. Because they are all born of you. So please order us how we may be able to render service unto you. Right? How can we serve? Oh, worshipful one, please guide us. Please give us your direction for the execution of duty within our working capacity so that we can follow it for fame in this life and progress in the next, right? So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, unquote. So Brahma then instructed Manu and blessed him to start his activities. So these are verses 11 and 12. Quote, since you are my very obedient son, I ask you to beget children qualified like yourself in the womb of your wife. Rule the world in pursuance of the principles of devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus worship the Lord by performances of yagya. O king, if you can give proper protection to the living beings in the material world, that will be the best service for me. When the Supreme Lord sees you to be a good protector of the conditioned souls, certainly the master of the senses will be very pleased with you. So Manu, he's not just a king, he protects everyone in Bhumandala, not just by being the king, but also by disseminating spiritual knowledge, right? So he's protector in both senses, both in the material sense and the spiritual sense. Okay, so Brahma blessed Manu like this. However, like when Manu was no, he was no. When Manu was finally blessed, to start his activities, he noticed something. He noticed that the art was submerged in the waters of the Garbhodaka Ocean, right? So, and then we come to a point here. What the art here means. So the word used here for art is Mahin, which indicates the great art, Bhumandala, right? So this becomes clear in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:20-45, where Prabhupada he translates the word Mahin as the earthly planets in the context of an explanation of Vedic cosmology. So Mahin means the whole planetary system, means the whole Bhumandala. But also on different verses and different purports, Prabhupada also refers to it as the art or the earthly globe, meaning just our planet. And appears to be a contradiction. Why sometimes Mahin is Bhumandala and sometimes it's just our planet, right? So this is something that I will try to explain a little bit later, right? This is a little bit complicated question. So anyway, so first let's understand about Bhumandala. So what is Bhumandala? Bhumandala forms the intermediate planetary system, right? And that's exactly the place Manu is supposed to reign. But Bhumandala was submerged. It was, under the water. So there was no way for Manu to perform his activities, What to do is underwater, right? So after hearing about the problem, Brahma, he started thinking about how Bhumandala could be lifted. Like how this, gigantic, the whole planetary system, how can you move it? And as he thought, a small form of a boar came out of his nostril. And this boar quickly grew in size and he assumed a gigantic form. It became a very huge, gigantic boar. So this boar, of course, was no one else than Lord Vishnu himself, right? In his form of Varahadeva. And he entered into the ocean and raised Bhumandala back into its proper place, allowing Swayambhuva Manu to start his work, right? So it is described that all the great sages from Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, they recited verses from the Vedas to glorify the Lord in his glorious appearance. And then in response, the Lord lifted Bhumandala from the depths of the universal ocean. So there is another quote here. These are verses 25 and 26. When the great sages and thinkers who are residents of Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka heard the tumultuous voice of Lord Boar, which was the all-auspicious sound of the all-merciful Lord, they chanted auspicious chants from the three Vedas. So, playing like an elephant, he entered into the water after roaring again in reply to the Vedic prayers by the great devotees. The Lord is the object of the Vedic prayers, and thus he understood that the devotees' prayers were meant for him, right? Jai. So, unquote. So, throughout his books, Prabhupada, he repeatedly makes the point that although Krishna doesn't have a material form, he does have a form, right? He has a form, it's just not material, right? His form is spiritual in nature. And this includes transcendental senses, right? So just like we have the propensity to execute activities, Krishna also has the propensity to execute activities. The difference is that while we perform activities under the spell of the three material modes, Krishna performs transcendental pastimes, right? So this is the difference. But apart from that, it's similar. We have form, he has form. We have activities, he has activities. The only activities is that he's in the transcendental platform. So according to the pastimes he wants to perform, Krishna, he assumes an appropriate form, right? So, for example, Hiranyakashipu, he had blessings from Lord Brahma that he will not be killed by a human nor by an animal. And therefore, Krishna assumed a form that is half man, half lion, right, to kill him, right? So appropriate, right, to the pastime. So similarly, when Krishna decided to lift, Bhumandala, which had fallen into the Garbhodaka ocean, he assumed the form of a transcendental hawk to rescue Bhumandala from inside the water. So as Prabhupada mentions in his purport to 3.13.44, he says that, quote, ordinarily, the body of a hog is considered impure, but one should not consider that the hog incarnation assumed by the Lord is also impure. No, right? That form of the Lord is the personified Vedas and is transcendental, right? Haribo, Jai. That's the end of the quote. And now, next slide. The art and the extended art. Okay, now I will try to explain why sometimes Mahim, the art, is Bhumandala, and sometimes Mahim, the art, is just our planet, right? Okay, let's try to dive deep into this point. Uh, okay, so the Srimad Bhagavatam describes the intermediate planetary system as a series of concentric islands called Bhumandala, right? That's, Vedic cosmology. That's what we see in the fifth canto. And this Bhumandala has a circumference of 2 billion miles. And at the center of this structure, there is the island of Jambudvipa, which is 800,000 miles in diameter, right? And then in the south of Jambudvipa, this you can see here in the slide, right? In the south here. So in the south of Jambudvipa, there is Bharatavarsha, right? And this is the tract of land where human beings live, right? Okay. So far, so good, right? Okay, we live in Bharatavarsha. Okay. So Bharatavarsha is the place, where, the Mahabharata happens, so many pastimes happen. So Bharatavarsha is the tract of land where the Pandavas and other kings, right, that are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, ruled, right? And of course, Bharatavarsha is part of Bhumandala and is situated on the south of Jambudvip, right, which is the central island. There is, however, this is, however, different from our sensory experience, right? We don't see Bhumandala around our planet, right? There is nothing, there is no like celestial abodes after the Himalayas, right? There is just China and and Tibet and so on, right? So it's different from what we can see, right? From our sensory experience. For us, there is no Bhumandala. The Earth is just a small planet that is floating in space, right? So why is so different, right? So our planet, right, the way we experience it in Kali Yuga is often also called Bharatavarsha, right? Often we see our planet is called Bharatavarsha. But this is not exactly the same Bharatavarsha where the Pandavas were living. Okay, so the place where human beings of previous ages, like they were living, is some kind of higher dimensional space. Is a higher dimension, and so it's a higher dimension, this dimensional space to which to this plan to which we have access right now. So our planet, it is some kind of projection of Bharatavarsha in the gross dimension where we live. So this is one explanation. Another possible explanation. Some believe that our planet is just one of the 9 islands that form Bharatavarsha, because Bharatavarsha is composed of 9 islands that are Aindra, Kasheru, Tanraparna, Gabastimat, Kumarika, Naga, Saumya, Varuna, and Gandharva, right? So this idea is also plausible, also possible, right? So the pastimes of the Mahabharata, as well as other events that happened in the previous eras, they happened in the higher dimensional Bharatavarsha, which is part of Bhumandala. And there is a lot of evidence for that. Maybe later we can explore in more detail this, why, this can be believed. But anyway, I'm just going to give a few examples here. So this idea that the Bharatavarsa described in the Mahabharata is a higher dimensional space explains why geographical features that are described in the Mahabharata, they are different from our planet. So for example, it's mentioned in the Mahabharata that Bharatavarsa, where the Pandavas lived, is 72,000 miles from north to south, that's 9,000 yojanas, and 640,000 miles, and that's 80,000 yojanas from east to west. And also says that the Himalayas, they are 80,000 miles high. And just to give a few examples, right? And this is a little bit different from what we experience, right? This is many times larger than our planet, right? So more details about this higher dimensional Bharatavarsa are given in the Skanda Purana, right? And that's 7, 1, 11, 6 to 14. And that's a conversation between Lord Shiva and Parvati Devi. So interesting quote here. So what is remembered as Jambudvip is exactly at the center of the art. It is divided into 9 regions. Oh, beautiful woman, known as the different Varsas. The first is called Bharatavarsa and is also divided into 9 parts. From south to north, it measures 9,000 yojanas, and that's 72,000 miles. And the distance from east to west is 80,000 yojanas, that's 640,000 miles. It has the Himalayas to the north and the Salty Ocean to the south, and also west and east. Oh goddess, Bharata, the excellent Kshetra, is in between. It is affected by 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. The division of yugas exists only here, as well as the classification of the people into 4 varnas. This Bharatavarsa is the seed of everything. O Lady of beautiful face, it is Karma Bhumi, the place where karma is created. The consequences of incurring merit and sins are not obtained elsewhere. So, wow, that's a very interesting quote. Like it speaks a lot about the nature of our world. So, see, first the dimensions that are given. So the same dimensions they are giving in the Skanda Purana, they are giving in the Mahabharata. So it's not something that you can just dismiss. These are mentioned in different places, right? The same numbers. So, okay, so Bharatavarsa that is described there, these dimensions that are given, is much, much bigger, much, much larger than our planet, right? But these dimensions that are given, they explain the gigantic armies and populations that are described not only in the Mahabharata but also in different pastimes of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So, for example, just to give one example, Jarasandha, he attacked Mathura 17 times, each with an army composed of 23 Aksalhinis, and that's more than 80 million kshatriyas in total. So each kshatriya is a king, right? So if you have 80 million kings, how many people you have in this place, right? You have like billions, if not trillions of people living there. And that's just the kingdom of Jarasandha, right? Just the kingdom of Jarasandha had a population of several billion people. And that's just one kingdom amongst many others, right? So, yeah. So this is bigger than our planet, right? So, although just a small part of Jambudvip, right, Bharatavarsa is considered extremely important, right? Why? Because that's the place where the souls, they take birth to create a new set of karma that they will enjoy or suffer in their next lives. Because all the other abodes that constitute Bhumandala, as well as the higher and lower planetary systems, they're actually places where souls who have some pious merits, they take birth to enjoy the results, right? So there are three types of heavens that are described in the Bhagavatam. So one are the heavens of Swargaloka, right, where the demigods live. Okay. Then second are the earthly heavens of Bhumandala, where souls who are coming down to earth, like from Swargaloka, they take a last birth to enjoy their remaining piety. And then there are the Bilaswarga, the subterraneous heavens, like the lower heavens, where the pious demons live. So these three are heavenly, right? These three are like paradises. So in all the places, souls who have, so in all these places, in all these three different places, souls who have some pious merits, they enjoy their piety as human beings or demigods or lower demigods or demons or nagas, according to their inclinations, right? All these people, they are considered higher than human beings, right? They are enjoying the result of their piety, whatever piety they did. So when these pious credits they are exhausted, they take a new birth as human beings in Bharatavarsa to accumulate a new set of karma. And what they do here in Bharatavarsa determines where they are going next, right? They can go again to the celestial planets, or they can go to animal life, or they can go to hell, right? Then there are many possibilities. Only the ones who are pious, they go to some of these heavens, right? The others, they go to animal life, or they take again births as human beings, or they go to hell. Depends on what they do. So because the souls of the whole universe, they have to take birth here to accumulate their new set of karma. Time in Bharatavarsha is divided into 4 eras, right? Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. And souls with different propensities, they take birth in these different ages. So, for example, Satya Yuga is the place for pure souls who are very saintly and they are on their way to higher planetary systems like Mahaloka, Janaloka, Satyaloka. So they take birth in Satya Yuga, they practice meditation, they accumulate, they purify themselves, and they can go to these higher planetary systems. And then Treta and Dwapara Yuga, they are for souls who have fruitive tendencies, who are, kind of pious, but they are, materialists at the same time. So they have this tendency for fruitive activities. So they have an opportunity to execute sacrifices and so on, and to be elevated to Swargalok, right? So that's the tendency in these 2 eras. And Kali Yuga is the place for the sinful souls who are like enrolled to the hellish planets or animal life, but they have an opportunity to be saved by the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Jai. So that's us, right? We were going down, we were enrolled to animal life or to hell in our sinful lives, but we have been saved by the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's the salvation for everyone else, right? We shouldn't think that, yeah, people are okay, everyone is okay, No, people are going to hell, if not to hell, to animal life. That's their destiny. That's where they are going, unless somehow or other they can get in contact with the Sankirtan movement. So that's very important and very urgent. So, okay, so to facilitate the progress of the souls and also to regulate their activities, right? Human beings in Bharatavarsa, they are divided into Brahmanas, Kshatras, Vaishyas, and Shudras, like Varnashrama. And each group receives specific duties according to their nature. So Varnashrama is not necessary for Satya Yuga, because in Satya Yuga, everyone is a Brahmana by qualification, but it comes into effect in Treta Yuga, and then it continues for Dwapara Yuga, and then in Kali Yuga, the system gradually decays, right? Then becomes caste system, and so on. It degrades, right? So human beings in the previous age, right, Dwapara Yuga, they live in the higher dimensional space of Bhumandala, and they have access to the other tracts of land that compose Jambudvipa. However, in Kali Yuga, we live in a gross dimension, and we don't have access to these higher realms, right? So according to Sridhara Swami, the original commentator of the Srimad Bhagavatam, even time for us is different from the rest of Bhumandala. What is 1 year in Bhumandala is 2 years for us. So even time is different for us. We are in a lower dimension. This is another argument that we are in a lower dimension, because the lower you go, faster times goes. Like so, 1 year in Bhumandala is 2 years for us, and it's 100 years in hell, because like down there on the bottom, right? So yeah, so that's another proof. So our planet is only part of Bhumandala, right? Sorry, our planet is the only part of Bhumandala that is visible in our gross dimension, right? We don't have access to anything else of Bhumandala. And just like this, and this is similar to the situation with the moon, right? The moon that we see in the sky, it's some kind of gross projection of the celestial moon in our gross dimension, right? So the same way that the moon is a projection of the gross moon is a projection of the celestial moon that is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, our planets is a projection of Bharatavarsha in your gross dimension, right? So certain places, like Badarikashrama, Kurukshetra, Naimisharanya, and so on, they exist simultaneously in the higher dimensional Bharatavarsha and in your planet, right? But only people who have the necessary qualification, they can gain access to the higher dimensional space. So for example, there is a place there in the Himalayas called Badarikashrama. Anyone can go there, take photos. There is even one cave there that they put a plaque saying, no, the abode of Vyasadeva and so on. You can go to the cave, take photos, but you will not see any Vyasadeva there. You will not see Naranarayana. You will not see all these personalities who live in Badarikashrama. So you can go to this place in the Himalayas, but you don't have access to the higher dimension. Therefore you don't meet these, personalities who live there. And the same applies to all holy places. So, for example, Vrindavan. Vrindavan exists both in the spiritual sky and here in our planet, right? So, pure devotees, when they go to Vrindavan, they have access to the spiritual Vrindavan, right? But others who are, not so pure, they just see Vrindavan as some other city of our planet. They go there, but they don't have access to the spiritual reality that exists there. They just see the cars, the buildings, and so on, right? So the same applies to Mathura and all the other holy places, right? So, and the same applies to Badarikashrama and all these places that are described in the scriptures. So, because our planet is the only visible part of Bhumandala in our gross dimension, the word Mahin is used in the Srimad Bhagavatam both in the sense of the whole Bhumandala, right, the extended art, and also in the sense of the art or the art globe, meaning just our planet, right? So depends from the perspective. When you say Mahin in the gross dimension means our planet. If you say Mahin meaning the higher dimension, then it means the whole Bhumandala. So there are thus the concepts of art in the sense of our planet as it exists in the gross dimension, and art in the sense of the extended art, right? Bhumandala, as it exists in the higher dimensional space. So both exist simultaneously, and human beings, they have access to one or another according to their level of spiritual realization, right? So at the end of Dwapara Yuga, when humanity degrades, then everyone collectively comes down to this gross dimension, right, where we live now, with the exception with people qualified like Vyasadeva, Swatama, Kripacharya, and Naranarayana, and so on, who continue living there in the higher dimension. And then at the end of Kali Yuga, when Kalki comes, and then Manu comes again to teach religious principles, and then humanity is restored, right? Everyone becomes elevated again. Then people collectively they migrate to the higher dimension, and then they live there starting from Satya Yuga. So you see that both exist simultaneously, and humanity it goes from one to the other according to the collective mentality. People in the higher dimension, they have access also to the lower dimension. They can look down and see what is happening here. But from the lower dimension, we don't have access to the higher dimension, right? So for example, Badarikashrama is a place that can be assessed from our planet, just like Vrindavan, Mathura, right? And the Badarikashrama, it can be accessed through the Himalayas. But Badarikashrama is part of the higher dimensional space of Bhumandala, and it's not accessible for ordinary people. Only a few, very advanced souls, they may be able to access it in the current age. For example, Madhavacharya, he was able to reach Badarikashrama, the real Badarikashrama, through the Himalayas. He went there, he received personal instructions from Vyasadeva and so on. And that's why Madhavacharya appears in the Parampara as a disciple of Vyasadeva, although he lived just 800 years ago, because he really met Vyasadeva. He got Siksha from Vyasadeva. Okay, and then we have another topic that are the two appearances of Lord Varahadeva, right? So you see that here in this illustration, we have the second Varahadeva, the red Varaha, and there is the white Varaha that appeared during the reign of Swayambhuva that lifted the whole Bhumandala. So the Srimad Bhagavatam describes the appearance of two different incarnations of Varahadeva, one white and another red, right? Which came at different times. However, in chapter 313, right, the two appearances, they are amalgamated. The two Leelas, they are combined in the same description. And this makes a little hard to understand, right? That's the problem. So, for example, in his purport to 3.13.31, Prabhupada, he mentions that, quote, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Vedic literature described the incarnation of Lord Varaha, boar, in two different devastations, namely the Chakshusha devastation and the Swayambhuva devastation. This particular appearance of the boar incarnation actually took place in the Swayambhuva devastation, when all the planets, other than the higher ones, Jana, Mahar, and Satya, merged in the water of devastation. This particular incarnation of the boar was seen by the inhabitants of the planets mentioned above. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti suggests that the sage Maitreya amalgamated, right, combined both the boar incarnations in different devastations and summarized them in his description to Vidura. So you see that not only Bhumandala, but also Bhuvarloka and Swargaloka, as well as the lower planetary systems, they were all underwater, right? So Lord Varaha, he lifted up the whole thing. Now it's not problem. Back to now me speaking. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as in the other Puranas, the emphasis is on the pastimes and the lessons that we learn from that, right? Not in the chronological order. So sometimes pastimes that happened over a very long span of time, they are amalgamated with pastimes that happened recently, right, in the cosmic scale of time. So, for example, in the 12th chapter of the third canto, we hear about the story of Brahma becoming attracted to his daughter, right? And in his purport, Prabhupada mentions that the extraordinary immorality on the part of Brahma was heard to have occurred in some particular kalpa, but it could not have happened in the kalpa in which Brahma heard directly from the Lord the four essential verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Lord blessed Brahma after giving him lessons on the Bhagavatam, that he would never be bewildered in any kalpa whatsoever. So this indicates that before the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, he might have fallen a victim of such sensuality. But after hearing Srimad Bhagavatam directly from the Lord, there was no possibility of such failures. Okay, so this is the purport of Prabhupada. So also Prabhupada makes an interesting point here, that that's the first time that the Bhagavatam becomes available, that Brahma hears the Srimad Bhagavatam, which means that in previous days of Brahma, there was no Srimad Bhagavatam, right? There was no other descriptions about the Lord, but not directly the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this explains a contradiction that we find in the Mahabharata. Because in Bhagavatam, it's mentioned that Parikshit Maharaj, after he was cursed, right, he went to the Ganges and he heard Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami, right? But if you go to the Mahabharata, the description is different. In the Mahabharata, is described that when Parikshit Maharaja he was cursed, the ministers they built a palace from Parikshit Maharaj that was on the sky and was protected from all sides. And they put Parikshit Maharaja there, so they tried to save Parikshit Maharaj in this way. But in the end, anyway, Takshaka went there and beat him. So you see that these two descriptions are different. They appear to be contradictory, right? In the description of Mahabharata, there is no narration of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But the acharyas, they explain that the Mahabharata that Vyasadeva described, these events that Vyasadeva described, these are the events that Vyasadeva saw before Parikshit took birth. He wrote Mahabharata before. So he saw these pastimes in his mind, but he saw the pastimes from some previous kalpa, where there was no Bhagavatam. So in the previous kalpa happened in this way. There was no Bhagavatam to be spoken. So when Parikshit was cursed, the ministers, they put him in the palace, tried to protect him. But in the current day of Brahma, because there is Bhagavatam, then Parikshit, the pastime happens differently. Parikshit, he goes to the Ganga and he hears Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami, right? So this explains also this apparent contradiction between the Bhagavatam and the Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? Mahabharata describes a different kalpa. Bhagavatam describes the current time. So that's why there are some discrepancies. Similarly, in Mahabharata, Draupadi, she goes with the Pandavas to the Himalayas and she dies there. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Draupadi stays with Subhadra. They speak about the pastimes of the Lord. So again, you see, right? There are these different apparent contradictions, but they're reconciled with this idea that these are two different, these are descriptions of different kalpas. Okay, so anyway, so going back to Varaha, right? We can see that the description of the current day is amalgamated with these incidents that happened in in a previous day of Brahma, right? In the case of Varaha, it's two appearances in different Manvantaras. In the case of the Brahma chasing his daughter, is something that happened in a previous day of Brahma, right? But this is revealed by Prabhupada in his purport, right? Following the comments of previous acharyas. So we are currently in the first day of Brahma, in the second half of the day of Brahma, like after his 5th birthday. And that's the first day of the second half of his life. And the pastimes described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in this case, right? Like most of the pastimes of Bhagavatam describe pastimes from the current day. But there are a few pastimes from previous days, here and there. For example, the story of Narada Muni in his previous life, that was previous day of Brahma. There is this pastime of Brahma chasing his daughter, right? Also previous day of Brahma. And these pastimes, they are sometimes amalgamated in the description of other pastimes. And then you need to go to the comments of the acharyas to understand, what is what, right? They explain. So anyway, if we do the math, we can calculate that Brahma has been alive for more than 155 trillion years. That's a lot, right? So in other words, Brahma chasing his daughter is a story that possibly happened like many trillions of years ago. So taking this into consideration, it's not a surprise that the pastimes of the two appearances of Varahadeva, they are also condensed into just one, right? They happen in the same days, just different Manvantaras. In other words, there is a chronology for the events of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And this chronology can be understood when we study the text attentively, right? We need to pay attention on everything, on all the details, check the purports, and then we can understand the chronology. It's just that because the main focus of Bhagavatam is on the spiritual instructions, this chronology is not always obvious because that's not the main focus, right? But it's possible to understand. The information is all there. So when we speak about the appearances of Lord Varaha, both stories, they happened in the current day of Brahma, right? The story of the first Varaha, the white Varaha, it happened at the beginning of the current day during the reign of Swayambhuva Manu, right? When the creation of the universe was still going on, right? And in this pastime, he lifted, the whole Bhumandala, and there was no fight with Hiranyaksha. Because of the appearance of Lord Varaha in his white form, the reign of Swayambhuva Manu is also called Sweta Varaha millennium, right? Sweta Varaha means white Varaha. And also because of the appearance of the white Varaha, the current day of Brahma is called also Sweta Varaha Kalpa, right? So there is the current day is called Padma Kalpa and also Sweta Varaha Kalpa. Padma Kalpa because the creation happens, Sweta Varaha Kalpa because Varaha appears. So then Lord Varaha appeared for a second time, more recently, during the reign of Chakshusha Manu, right? Which is the sixth Manu in the sequence. So each Manu, again, so just to reinforce this, each Manu he reigns for 306.72 million years. So and there is so there is a gap of about 1.532 billion years between these two appearances of Lord Varaha, right? And also, there is this quote from Srimad Bhagavatam that's 13:16. Prabhupada there mentions that, quote, according to Jiva Goswami, the topics delineated here are of different millenniums. The present topics are of the Svetavaraha millennium, and topics regarding the Chakshusha millennium will also be discussed in this chapter. So again, one important point also to understand the text. It's important to note that Prabhupada uses the word millennium in different senses throughout his purports, just like he used the words era or period, right? So it's sometimes millennium is used in the sense of yuga, like Kali Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, right? In the third millennium and so on, current millennium. Sometimes millennium is used in the sense of Jivya Yuga, like a combination of 4 yugas. Sometimes it's used in the sense of Manvantara, like this previous quote that I just mentioned, the reign of a Manu. Sometimes it's used in the sense of a Kalpa, a day of Brahma. Like, for example, Narada Muni was living the previous millennium, right? He was in the previous Kalpa. And therefore, it's important to be attentive to the context. So, for example, in this quote that I just mentioned, like 3:13:16, the Svetavaraha millennium refers to the reign of Swayambhuva Manu. And while in other purport, for example, 3:11:36, Prabhupada refers to Padma Kalpa as the millennium of Padma Kalpa, right? There it refers to the day of Brahma. And also in Srimad Bhagavatam 6:10:16, he mentions that we are now in the 28th millennium of Vaisvata Manu. In this case, the word millennium is used in the sense of a Jivya Yuga, right? 4.32 million years, right? There are 71 Divya Yugas in a day in a Manvantara. We are current in the 28th millennium, right? The 28th Jivya Yuga. And this is confirmed also in the purport. Also in Bhagavad Gita 4:8, millennium is used in the sense of an individual yuga, right? So let's see. We can see that millennium is just an English word that is used as a translation for different Sanskrit terms in different contexts, right? Just like words. So when we read millennium, we just take it as age or era, right? That's all. And then from the context, we try to understand, what kind of age is it speaking about? A yuga, a divya yuga, manvantara, a kalpa, right? Only by the context we can understand. So Lord Varaha is listed also as a Lila Avatara. And this suggests that he appears repeatedly, right? It seems that the appearance of the red Varahadeva and his fight with Hiranyaksha happens every day of Brahma, right? While the appearance of the white Varahadeva is a special occurrence because it doesn't seem that it happens every day of Brahma. Otherwise, the current day it will not be called the Sweta Varaha Kalpa, right? Because no, it's called Sweta Varaha because Varaha, the white Varaha, appears only in this day. So in any case, just as in other incarnations of the Lord, the pastimes of Lord Varahadeva, they are just unlimited, right? And thanks to the descriptions of Sukadeva Goswami, we know about two of his appearances, right? We don't know all, but at least two we know. Okay, next topic, the prayers of the sages. So in these words, the hog is not considered, a very attractive or pure animal, right? But when the Lord appears in the form of a hog, then he becomes the most attractive personality. So the Lord is pure and transcendental, right? There is no difference between himself and his body. Therefore, every time the Lord appears to perform some pastime, his transcendental form is the most attractive, right, Jai? So it is described that Lord Varaha was gigantic, like a great elephant, and roared with an uncommon voice that echoed in all directions. So initially, Lord Brahma and the great sages, they are puzzled about the identity of this uncommon personality. Like, who is this boy? But then when they heard his roar, they could understand that that was the Supreme Lord, right? And they could understand that this is the Supreme Lord, and they started offering prayers and chanting mantras from the Vedas. And in response to these prayers, the Lord roared again, and he flew into the sky, whipping his tail, right? And this made his hairs quiver, right? He shook his hairs. And this was another, attractive spectacle. So while flying, he also scattered the clouds in the sky with his hooves and his glittering white tusks, right? So many beautiful scenes are described, right? So when we speak about a boar, ordinary boar or about a pig is not so beautiful, right? But when we speak about the Lord, then we can see, how beautiful these pastimes are, right? And finally, now after all of this, he entered into the cosmic ocean with great force, and he created two great waves that looked like two gigantic arms, like the ocean got arms. And playing like a hawk, the Lord found the earth by smell and lifted her from the bottom of the ocean by balancing the planet on his tusk. And at this moment, he appeared very splendid, right? And remember, when we say art or when we say planet, it means Boof or planet and the whole Bhumandala, right? As we discussed before. So the great sages of the universe, they glorify the Lord by offering prayers, right? So based on the explanations of Prabhupada on 314.2, it appears that these prayers, they were offered by the great sages in the occasion of the first appearance of the Lord, right? Because you see, remember, this description that we have on the chapter, it combines, it amalgamates both appearances. So there are some details from one appearance, some details from the other appearance. So it's difficult to determine what is what. But from the purport of Prabhupada, it seems that this part about the Lord's, praying to the Lord, it is connected with the first appearance. So, okay, so here are some of the main points. So first point is that although descending in a form of a boar, right, the Lord's form is fully transcendent, right? There is no material, nothing material there. So even though appear in the material world to perform pastimes, the Lord, he doesn't assume a material body like ordinary living entities, right? Nor he is under the influence of the three modes. He's transcendental, he's pure. Then, second, B, the Lord is equally worshipable in all his transcendental forms, right? Be as the Lord of Vaikunta, as Narayana, or in any of his incarnations. However, the Duskrita, the miscreants, the fools and rascals, they are unable to understand it, right? So then C, the Vedavadaratis, or the false followers of the Vedas, they perform different forms of sacrifice without understanding their purpose, right? And without strictly following the regulations from the Vedas. So such sacrifices, they are useless, right? The sages, right in the beginning of the universe, they are already declaring this is useless, right? So in reality, taking shelter in the Lord and rendering, devotional servicing to Him is a real form of sacrifice, right? So the Lord is the source of all benedictions and also the enjoyer of all forms of sacrifice. All forms of sacrifice should be seen in connection with the Lord and performed for His satisfaction, right? So the sages, they make this point. Then all forms of sacrifice, they have the goal of realizing the Lord. For this, one should become free from all material contaminations and desires. And this freedom is called vairagya, or renouncement of material desires. So when one attains this platform, then the mind becomes pure and free, right? From both visible and invisible material contaminations, right? In other words, one becomes pure inside and outside, internally and externally. And how can one achieve such a platform? There is a quote here from Prabhupada. He says that, quote, one who engages in devotional service to the Lord according to the regulative principles is automatically freed from material desires, and in that pure state of mind, one can realize the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, instructs the devotee regarding pure devotional service so that he may ultimately achieve the association of the Lord. And then the ultimate end of all these performances is to attain bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord. Without bhakti, one cannot understand the supreme personality of Godhead. Jai. And then next point, E. The Lord could have lifted the earth from the ocean just by his potencies, right? Why then he chose to personally come? For the pleasure of enjoying his pastimes. That's why. By lifting the earth, like using his tusk, the transcendental body of the Lord looks especially beautiful, and the planet also looks beautiful, like a cloud resting on the peak of a mountain, right? And then F, the earth is the wife of the Lord, and the Lord is the Supreme Father. Therefore, both are worshipable, right? So the earth is not only created and maintained by the Lord, but it also floats in space thanks to the potence of the Lord in the form of the gravitational force, right? So see, always thanks to the Lord. And although the activity of lifting the earth, from the bottom of the cosmic ocean was wonderful and, could not be performed by anyone apart of the Lord, this activity is not at all difficult for the Lord because he's the creator of the whole material manifestation, right? So, and then 8, an ordinary hog is a very impure animal, right? Nasty, right? Nasty. However, when the Lord appears in the form of a hog, then he's the most pure, right? He's completely different, opposite of an ordinary hog. So the inhabitants of the Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka planetary systems, they are the most pious in the material world. They are the most clean, pure, but they still show impurities, right? So they are purer than others, but they are not completely pure. In other words, they are purer than others, but no, they are not 100%. Therefore, when drops of water that had touched the transcendental body of the Lord, they were sprinkled on them, they felt purified. They felt that, oh, now we are really pure, right? And then last point, E. There are no limits to the activities of the Lord, right? And thus, they are unlimited, and unconceivable. Everyone in the material world is captivated by the external energy of the Lord and thus conditioned, right? In Maya. It is extremely difficult for the minute soul to become free from this influence. But one who surrenders to the Lord can become the object of his causeless mercy and he can be saved, right? Haribo. And next topic, jumping forward in time. No, time travel. Right? Time travel in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, the previous chapters, they describe the creation of Brahma, right? All the way to the creation of Swayambhuva Manu and the first appearance of Lord Varaha, when he lifted Bhumandala out of the ocean and so on. And in this way, he created the conditions for Manu to start his reign and populate the universe, right? So this was in the beginning of the day of Brahma. So all of this happened right at the beginning of the current day, right? More than 2 billion years ago, according to time in Bhumandala. If we would calculate time in our planet, is even more. However, because the description of Maitreya combined details of the two appearances of Lord Varaha, mentioning that he killed the demon Hiranyaksha, right, which happened in the second appearance, because he, amalgamated details of the two pastimes. Maitreya, he became interested in hearing more about this pastime of Varahadeva killing Hiranyaksha, right? And this led Maitreya to jump on time and start to describe the fighting between the red Varaha, the second incarnation, and Hiranyaksha, which happened much later, right? This is 6th Manvantara. So when we read from the first time, it looks like Maitreya, he describes first the pastime without so many details, and then he repeats the pastime with more details, right? But no, in the first time, he describes the appearance of the white Varaha, just amalgamating a few details from the second appearance. And then when Vidura asks to hear more, then he describes the second appearance of Lord Varaha in all details, right? And so Maitreya, hearing this, he will now describe the story of Diti and Kasyapa Muni conceiving a child at the improper time, and thus begetting, the two great powerful demons, right? Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And also the pastime of their appearance, the curse of Jaya and Vijaya by the four Kumaras, and their births in the material world as demons, right? And then after explaining these two pastimes, right? Varahadeva fighting Hiranyaksha and the Kumaras cursing Jaya and Vijaya, then Maitreya proceeds to narrate the battle between Varaha and the demon in detail, right? So, he describes, in detail the fight with Varaha and Hiranyaksha, or how, and so on. So, okay, so all of this, it comprises the narrations in chapters from 14 to 19, right? So all of this, all that is described there, 14 to 19, is happened in the 6th Manvantara, right? So there is this jump in time from the 1st Manvantara to the 6th Manvantara, and then back to the 1st Manvantara. Because in the 20th chapter, Maitreya goes back to the process of creation of the universe. He describes a few more details about the creation of Brahma, and then he starts narrating more events from the 1st Manvantara, starting from the story of Kardama Muni marrying Devahuti, begetting Kapila Muni as their son. And then this description of the 1st Manvantara, it goes all the way to the end of the 3rd canto, right? And then the narrations of this is actually not the description of the 1st Manvantara, the description of Lord Kapila, Kardama Muni, and Devahuti, it goes all the way to the end of the 3rd canto. Then the narration of the events of the 1st Manvantara continues in the 4th canto. And then we have the pastime of Daksha cursing Lord Shiva, like ending being killed and then revived with the head of a goat. And then we have the description of the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj and the story of King Vena, which led to the appearance of Prithu Maharaj, like including his milking of the arts and his meeting with the four Kumaras. And all of this, this happened in the first Manvantara. So see, first Manvantara goes to the sixth and then goes back to the first. And after this, the narration jumps again to the sixth Manvantara with the story of King Bahirsat, the birth of the 10 Prachetas, their meditation inside the water, their meeting with Lord Shiva, and so on. And then after this, the narration of the Srimad Bhagavatam, again, it focuses on events of the sixth Manvantara. So one cold question now, okay, what happened in the second, third, and fourth, and fifth Manvantara? Why they are not extensively described like in the first one, right? So although there are a few descriptions of the pastimes that happened in these Manvantaras, like for example, the churning of the milk ocean, right, by the demigods and the demons, and so on, Gajendra being saved. Not much is known about these Manvantaras, right? And the reason for that appears to be related to the pastime of Daksha, because later is described that after being revived with the head of a goat, right, and successfully performing a sacrifice for Lord Vishnu, Daksha retired from his duties, as the leader of the Prajapatis, and he went to perform austerities and to become free from the results of his offenses to Lord Shiva. So he was killed first time, right? He was revived with the head of a goat, but this body he left. So he took birth again next time, right? And this second birth still happened in the first Manvantara. But he practiced austerities for a very long period, all the way to the sixth Manvantara. Sorry. Sorry, I confused. Going back. So Daksha was killed, right? Because of his offenses to Lord Shiva. He got the head of a goat, right? And then with this body, with the head of a goat, he didn't go back to his palace. He didn't go back to his queen, right? He went to the mountains and he practiced austerities for a very, very long period. And then these austerities went all the way to the sixth Manvantara. And then he left his body, and then he was born again as the son of the Prachetas in the sixth Manvantara, right? So Daksha was then reborn, right, with a normal head, not with goat's head. Then he was married to Akshini, Panchajani, same person, and he begot 60 daughters who were given in marriage to the great sages, right? And then it's described that most of the population of the universe, including the different species of plants, animals, etc., was generated from these 60 daughters. And this suggests that the universe remained relatively empty during this first five Manvantaras, right? When Daksha was performing his penances. And therefore, not much was happening. This seems the case. Of course, it's not that the universe was empty, right? The Manvantaras, they were going on, there were demigods, there were people, there were demons, everything was there. Was just that apparently the population was not so big, because Daksha is the most active of the Prajapatis. He is the one who really, generates a lot of population. He has, this potency of really, begetting, children by the, practically unlimitedly, right? So through his wives, he generates the most of the population of the universe, all the birds and insects and animals and, all species. And also he generates a few qualified sons and daughters. Some of them are liberated by Narada Muni, some are married, some the daughters are married, and so on. So the pastime of Daksha offending Lord Shiva, it appears thus to be an event that dramatically affected the history of our universe, like making the current day different from other days of Brahma when the creation proceeds like uninterrupted. So we will better study all these different, events in the next parts of the course. And, because there are many mysterious passages, like in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So here I'm trying to not just explain the past tense, but also explains, all these mysterious details, all these apparent contradictions of the Bhagavatam, and also how the pastimes they connect to each other, and also how they connect to our reality, the way we see around, the way they connect with the, um, modern theories about the creation of the universe and so on. So I'm trying to just connect everything so you can, read the Bhagavatam and really see that, oh, this book, it really speaks the truth. Everything is connected, everything is logical. It really describes the history of the world, and it describes but it describes the history of the world in a higher reality that even, higher than what we have in our planet. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you very much for coming. Hare Krishna. I hope this is useful. And thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.